Hi everyone, my name is Jamie Albers. I'm Grower Sector Specialist with the Canadian Nursery Landscape Association. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today at the AIPH Spring Meetings on one of the initiatives CNLA has done to support grower members. I want to talk about the pest-free trade of nursery stock and in particular how CNLA developed a plant certification program for box tree moth. The agenda today will be to talk about the issue, of course, which is pest-free trade of nursery stock. And the project that we delivered was box tree moth plant certification as the example. We, of course, had good and bad experiences in implementing and developing this. And I'll talk at the end about some of the lessons that we learned. As we all know, plant nurseries develop customers' relationships far from their facilities. And of course, this necessitates the shipping of nursery stock from the region where it was grown to other regions. And these other regions can be domestic within the same country, or they can be in different countries altogether, internationally. And it goes both ways as well, right? There's imports and there's exports. But as an industry, we want to ensure that this trade, this import and export trade in nursery stock does not facilitate the movement of pests and diseases from one region to another. And we're all keenly aware that there have been increasing incidences of invasive pests and disease introductions around the world, not just as a result of nursery trade, of course, but also through increasing global trade in general. And box tree moth is just one example of that. And of course, we experienced it in Canada in 2018. It was late in 2018 when iNaturalist first identified box tree moth in a residential landscape just outside of Toronto in Canada, and it was the first incidence of box tree moth in North America. At this point, of course, growers became very concerned about the future of boxwood, and particularly two aspects of it. How can they move forward and ensure that box tree moth does not move from the landscape into the nursery? And secondly, how will their market in the U.S. be impacted by the presence of a pest in Canada that is not in the U.S.? And they had good reason to be concerned, of course, with boxwood being one of the highest selling plants in nursery trade in North America. So at CNLA, we set up an industry working group and immediately started looking at ways to develop clean plant certification for growers, with the objective, of course, that growers would be able to produce plants that were completely free of box tree moth when they left the nursery. So this program was developed by CNLA, and it would be administered by the Canadian Nursery Certification Institute, which provided third-party audit and verification processes for the certification program. The program itself was in essence a box tree moth pest module backed up by an underlying systems approach program, in this case Clean Plants. And in the end, it became one of the 3 systems accepted by CFIA for growers in regulated areas to receive domestic movement certificates to ship boxwood out of that regulated area. Of course, it didn't happen without hiccups. We did have some bad experiences along the way, and we also had some good ones. I'll touch on the bad ones first. As I mentioned, the pest was first discovered in 2018, and our certification program didn't come into play until May of 2023. So of course, that timing of response is a concern. You need to be able to act quickly when a new pest arrives. And we found out that it takes time to develop pest management practices. When a new pest arrives, a lot of the research that needs to be done to develop those BMPs hasn't been done yet. And we also discovered that it takes time for the regulatory process to run through. When box tree moth was discovered in Canada, it was not a regulated pest, and it took until 2022 for it to become regulated. And unfortunately, within that time, box tree moth was found in shipments to the U.S. in the spring of 2021. So one of the worst experiences for us, of course, was that the market in the U.S. was closed to Canadian-grown boxwood in May of 2021. And since that time, and a survey done in July 2023, we found that growers had lost $22 million in sales of boxwood due to the loss of that market. We did have some issues with getting the domestic certification program in place in Canada, as I mentioned before, and to top it off, it took a little while longer for the Minister of Agriculture to sign off on the program, so that it wasn't until later in the spring in 2023 that we had a certification program in place. So unfortunately, prior to that, growers could ship without a certification program, and sadly some boxwood did get shipped to the eastern parts of Canada in spring of 2023 with box tree moth on them. This of course led to plant destructions for garden centers who received the product, and box tree moth became established in 3 new provinces in that time period as well. So currently we are undergoing consultations to expand the regulated area for box tree moth in Canada. Some of the good experiences, of course, that came out of this whole process were the partnerships that were developed that will continue when new pests arrive, with researchers, regulators, growers, and associations within Canada, provincially and nationally, but also within North America between the CNLA and American Hort. In 2020, we held our first working group meeting between American Hort and CNLA with growers, regulators, and researchers from both countries, meeting twice a year to discuss how to manage box tree moth in North America and be proactive in doing so. We have developed processes to ensure pest freedom, and when followed, they do result in a plant that leaves the nursery free of box tree moth. One of the big good experiences, I guess, that I'd like to highlight is we got acceptance of a private entity delivering phytosanitary services, and we got that acceptance from CFIA in having clean plants as one of the accepted programs for box tree moth certification in Canada. We've developed a template for future pests and diseases, so hopefully when a new pest arrives, we can respond more quickly. With all the work together, we were able to regain access to the U.S. market for BC-grown boxwood. Not all of Canada, but for the pest-free areas in Canada, growers can now ship boxwood back into the U.S. market, and that occurred late in 2023. So the lessons learned, I guess a summary of what I would call our lessons is that if you can move more quickly when something like this happens, do it. I wish we could have had the pest module in place sooner than we did. We also discovered, though, that not all growers are as keen on implementing pest modules as others, and some growers will determine that it's just not worth shipping boxwood out of regulated areas. And unfortunately for us, there were varying degrees of acceptable risk mitigation processes with 3 programs available. Timing is critical. Moving quickly and moving from an unregulated pest to a regulated one takes time. So when pests are coming and you can see them coming, it pays to have them regulated before the pest comes into the country. And of course, working as an industry, involving all the value chain as you work through an issue like this is critically important, with having garden centers and landscape contractors also involved in education to the consumer on box tree moth or other pests that are similar. Again, thank you very much for giving me the 10 minutes to speak to you about this. Unfortunately, I can't be with you today, and I can't answer questions directly, but if you do have any, please share them with Bill Hardy or send them to my email address, which is here on the screen. Thanks again. Enjoy the rest of your meetings and safe travels home.